This is the Mentor Moments podcast. My name is Brayton Wooters, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Michael Keener. On Mentor Moments, we take the time to interview counseling professionals and personal mentors. We hope you enjoy this episode and keep tuning in.
Well, I love, the only thing that I can add to that is just how the one thing that we've been talking about a little bit is compound interest, at least here at my office, and the compound interest of continuously meeting with somebody again and again and again, and how that builds over time. There aren't many other occupations that have that ability like teaching. You are continuously seeing the same person again every week, week in, week out, and that builds up over time. It's so specific to teaching. I love that.
Compound interest. That's a cool way to think about it.
Yeah. So what would you say it's like mentoring doctoral students? And maybe Dr. Keener can add some pieces to that.
Well, I never thought of myself as mentoring doctoral students, but although that's, I guess, what it was, I was just working with the students as they went through the program. And to some extent, it was just sort of the job. That's what you do. And it was rewarding, obviously satisfying. You like to see them succeed. And it's nice to get to know your students along the way a little bit. Sometimes you get to know some better than others. Sometimes you know their family a little bit, or some of their history and some of the connections. And that's always nice, building a sense of community that can stay with you. But I guess it sounds maybe crass to say it. It was just sort of part of the job. It's what you do. I liked it. It worked. But in a sense, it wasn't special in a way that I could identify. It was just what you did.
Can I just add a little to that? Because I think, your formula for success included some pretty specific things, that, you had, maybe come to almost take for granted because they were so natural over time. And that includes, critical thinking, clear writing, strong attention to all aspects of methods, design, measurement, analysis, thinking about implications of a study for the world, and bringing that all together, in a way that becomes personal to the student too. I think that's my perception of how you did it. And I guess I would say that's sort of what I try to do as well. Yeah.
I guess I'm taking us in a little off direction. I guess I'm just curious, there's probably a bell curve of working with students, right? Students that sort of can somewhat easily go through the program. Yeah. Then the majority, there's this moments of struggle or whatever. And then there's the ones that it just, for whatever reasons, life circumstances or whatever that. So I don't know, is there any, differences, or do you see anybody that maybe more of a story or something that you picture a student that how you helped sort of coach, even if they were doing real well, how did you help them continue to do real well? Or
well, one student comes to mind, and this was back at the beginning of my time here in the master's program. I think the student might have been in rehab. I don't know. Anyway, she was a Palestinian woman in her 30s, and she was violently Palestinian. And this was back in the Yasser Arafat days of the early 70s, late 60s. A lot of conflict with Israel and the Palestinians. And she was vehemently Palestinian and vehemently anti-Israel. And she didn't have any kindred spirits around here in Buffalo that she knew of. And she would come in my office and talk, and I would listen. And because I listened, she kept coming back time after time, and I would hear the same ranting and raving about the Palestinians and Israelis over and over again. But I never turned her away. I never said, I can't see you. And we weren't really doing anything academic. She was just ranting. And then I would finally say, I've got another appointment, I've got to go. And the next week she'd be back again. And that made a difference to her. I think it was a connection she had, one of the few. She got through the program. She went back to Palestine. I never heard from her again. But I think just listening to her made a difference for her. Another thing that comes to mind that's unrelated, but I do think of it. In my statistics classes, classes here met once a week, and they typically would meet from 7 to 9:40, straight through once a week. Well, that's a long time to sit there. So there would usually be a break. And the break was supposed to be 10 minutes, but it always turned out to be 20, 25 minutes. And I never like breaks. I don't like breaks when you go to the theater. I like it just go straight through. So I didn't like these breaks. So I decided I was going to just give a maybe 5-minute interlude in the middle, end class 15 minutes early, so the students would, anyway. And in this interlude, I would read an excerpt of a children's story. And I had a whole group of children's story I picked out. I always led off with the Velveteen Rabbit, and I read not the whole story, but a key passage from The Wizard of Oz, The Velveteen Rabbit, Alexander, Absolutely No Good, Very Bad Day, on and on and on, Winnie the Pooh. And so oftentimes, and this happened really many times, later on, I would meet one of my students who had graduated X years ago at a movie theater, at a restaurant, and they would say, "Oh, I always remember your statistics class. What I remember was the Velveteen Rabbit. That's what I remember." That happened a lot, and that is what they remember.
Yeah.
They don't remember chi-square analysis of variance, but they did remember the Velveteen Rabbit. And there's something instructive in there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is exactly,
Yeah.
but there's something there.
Yeah.
Again, it's a little bit of a human connection between
Yeah.
a story that they remember from their childhood and me reading the story.
I didn't have you for statistics, but for supervision, you read to us as well. So it's
Yeah, I like doing that.
Well, I throw in music in mine. That's the parallel thing. I try to find music that relates to our topic or doesn't. I just think is good, and worth hearing.
well, that's what I was going to say as well. I remember you must have told us a story about being in New Orleans or something, and then one of my first semesters here, a student said I needed to go to this outdoor fest for Cottonmouth was playing. And the next time I saw you, I said, "You know Cottonmouth?" And he said, "Well, of course I know Cottonmouth." So we had a little music there.
Yeah, there's one of their discs right behind me. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
I think that kind of does go back to making it relatable and human and fun. Yeah, the connection of positive affect to anything is good.
Yeah.
Right. Anything good you want, anything you want to encourage, which actually reminds me, I wonder if in the series that you guys have been doing, has anyone ever brought up what might be called dementors or anti-mentors?
Ooh, no.
Oh, well, you could be the first.
Because I was thinking about that too. So besides wanting to be like Tom, there have been some I don't want to be like that I have met, and sometimes. And I was thinking about this in terms of your, title of your thing, mentor moments. And it only takes a moment for a person to reveal, that they're not that good a person, and you don't want to be like that. You never want to treat another person like that, right? Like they just treated you. I think that's part of the whole formula too.
The closest I can come to that is having maybe 1 or 2 faculty members over the years when I was a student, and gradually came to realize they didn't care about what they were doing. They didn't really like their job. They weren't putting any energy into it. They weren't invested into it. They were just, doing it by the numbers to get through the class, and that was a big turnoff.
Yeah.
They weren't bad people. They just didn't seem to like their job or care or put any energy into it. And that certainly was something to avoid.
Yeah.
As become a faculty member myself.
Right. That's super disappointing when that happens.
Well, I can imagine that you almost form a radar for those kinds of things once more of a feeling as opposed to.
Well, and the student grapevine is keyed into stuff like that pretty well.
Yeah.
As a student, you hear from your colleagues, word gets around.
Yeah, shifting gears a little bit. Any advice for our listeners or maybe even any of our hosts that are on this podcast about a PhD program and like a career in higher ed. Any advice that you'd have for anyone thinking about heading that direction?
I think I was lucky, very lucky, in a way that people before me and after me probably weren't and aren't, to be in higher education at the best of all possible times. It was post-Sputnik. Rockefeller was governor here in New York, and he was heavily investing in education, creating SUNY, out of nothing, and investing heavily. Higher education was in, I would say, its heyday. States were spending millions of dollars on education. When I came to UB, about 90% of its budget came from the state. When I left in 2007, barely over 20% came from the state. The investment in higher education has gone down over the years, but I was lucky to be here at a time when it was high and when higher education was really in its heyday. And I just feel very lucky that happened. So now, as I think about what it's like up in our department now, it's very different than it was 17 years ago when I retired. And I don't know what it's like well enough to comment on it. But when I was there, a faculty job was about the best job I could envision. You only taught in most graduate school PhDs, you only taught usually 2 courses a semester. So you had plenty of free time. You were supposed to spend a lot of time in research. Your time was your own. Nobody monitored you. Nobody said, oh, you weren't here Thursday afternoon at 3. Nobody paid any attention to that. I'd be up here on Fridays usually, and I'd be one of only 2 or 3 people in the whole hall. People were out. I used to take off 3 noons a week for an hour and a half, 2 hours to play basketball. And I just left, went to the Y and played basketball and came back. And that's just what I did, and I could do that. I mean, I was grading papers every night till 10:30, 11 o'clock, but that's just the way. Your time was your own. You could do what you want. As long as you did your job, you were your own boss. Your department chair was usually more supportive than anything else. Nobody looked over your shoulder and told you you're screwing up. It was a wonderful life. And plus you're with, and this is a big advantage, especially you don't know it at first. You get older as a faculty member. The students stay the same age. So you're continually in touch with youth, with life, with vitality. That never goes away. And that's a wonderful gift. I've really noticed it in retirement. So faculty life, I would say, go for it. It's the best job in the world. You're not going to get wealthy, but you're going to earn a decent salary. You're going to be fine. And you have plenty of vacation time if that's what. It's just the best life in the world. Academic stimulation, good people, plenty of free time. I would go for it.
You're here. Yeah, and the point about timing, I think, is an important one, because we've sort of talked about how luck and has played into things. So you kind of work towards a goal, but you got to, I guess, say to yourself, well, what are my values? What do I really care about? And if you really deep down believe that education is important and helping other people is important, then you're kind of on the right path. And maybe while there were more opportunities before, in a way, education is more precious than it's ever been, right? And more important, to individuals who are trying to make it, as your students or as new faculty. So I think, sort of like what Tom was saying about the, persistence needed to finish a dissertation. You gotta stick with it. And, it's no guarantee. I guess the other thing that I was thinking about, Brayton, is, and maybe you already are doing this, but getting some practice teaching is helpful, because almost everybody, I think, has to face some anxiety about the first time or first class you teach, and kind of getting that under your belt and learning from it, I think is really helpful too.
I would add to what Jim said, that now is maybe almost the most important time in recent history for education. to me, education and democracy are linked, and both are under attack. And both need to survive for our nation to survive. And I mean, not literally, both need to survive.
Yeah.
And I think they are linked. The more educated you are, the more valuable you realize democracy is.
Yeah.
And I think that to go into education these days would be the best thing you could possibly do for your country, not to mention yourself.
Yeah, really. I mean, you just think about the unbelievable network of colleges and universities in this country. You know, it's just fantastic. Even though, you know, there's so many well-documented struggles and colleges are closing in alarming rates in some places. But it's more important than ever for all the reasons Tom said. And to find yourself, you know, a place in it where you can, you know, you don't expect that it's going to be the life of ease at all. You know, it's hard work, and you know, there's all sorts of challenges, but it's definitely good work.
And I hear it echoed with both of you. It sounds just so fulfilling. That's one theme that I keep coming back to, and I keep understanding from those that I've talked to about it, is that there's just a level of fulfillment to it that is hard to, I think, describe for our other guests. So
yeah, you're right. It is very fulfilling. That's
Yeah.
a good word, Braden.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think fits with the themes of your show is, you know, the sort of carrying on traditions and paying forward, right, and trying to keep the good things going.
Jim, I'm glad you said that. There's one thing that is special to me. Every fall, I get to experience somebody's first day of college.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Families are on campus, students are happy. It's a great feeling. And then similarly, every day, really every semester now, I get to experience somebody graduating from college.
Right.
Yeah, those are just some life moments that are pretty spectacular. I guess, you know, my grief experience or loss experience, it made me think a lot about pastors and the special role that priests, pastors, other healing professionals like have with people, that they're really intimate with you. Like you're walking through this journey. And then I realized, well, that's my role as an educator as well. You know, we're working with students sort of first day of school, last day of school, through challenges. I mean, there's been students that we've struggled to sort of help graduate, but we've now become pretty close because of being together on that journey. So sort of add this, I don't know, this specialness of being connected with another human being that what education can provide.
Yeah, I think another thing that comes to mind, maybe not too much related, is that I know as a student, I looked up to my faculty members. I thought faculty members were special. And this was in grade school, high school, you know, all along the way. I thought teachers I looked up to them. And I think our students look up to us. Whatever, however we are. We didn't do anything necessarily to earn it directly, but just because you're a teacher, your pupils are going to look up to you to some extent. I mean, you can screw it up, but you start out having their respect. And that's sort of awesome when you think about it. And it's sobering when you think about it. I had never thought about it too much when I was being a faculty member, but when I think back, I looked up to almost all my teachers, whatever, you know, and I just did because they were a teacher. And that's something special about being a teacher. You get looked up to.
Yeah, there was another thing I was thinking about. I told you about my statistics professor at Claremont, and he one time sent me a thing like top 10 things he had learned being a statistics teacher, and the last one was the key to education is respecting the learner, which was a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, which I think you know, is good fit with what Tom just said. Which, I mean, I guess we got to let you get ready for your own class here pretty quick, Mike, but that's pretty, I wasn't sure, you know, quite what to expect. This has been really fun.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see what you guys are doing. I hope we make it to the official schedule, you know?
Yeah, well, definitely. We will let you go too, but I kind of want to give Tom a chance to promote his grandson. For all the listeners out there, we're recording during the Olympics, and Tom has his grandson, Hobbs Kessler, running in the 1500 meters and 800 meters. So can you just gloat on your grandson a little bit for us? Tell our listeners who maybe aren't track fans a little bit about him.
Yeah. Well, I have a grandson, Hobbs Kessler, who lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Our daughter, Serena, went to Clarence High School here, is in the Hall of Fame as a runner here in Clarence. And he started running in high school, and as a high school senior, out of the blue, he set the U.S. record for the high school mile, meet in Arkansas in his senior year. It's a long story behind how I ever got there. Anyway, he became a really good runner. He signed with Adidas as a pro runner right out of high school. He's been getting better and better, and he made the Olympic team at the trials in Eugene, Oregon last month, and he's running in the Olympics. He finished 5th in the 1500 finals a couple of days ago, running the 4th fastest time ever run by a U.S. runner in the 1500 meter. Unfortunately, the 2nd and 3rd fastest times were run by people in the same race. He ran the 4th, so he was 4th. He's running in the 800 meter. He qualified in the 800 meters also, the first runner since 1976 to qualify in both the 800 and the 1600. He's running in the semifinals tomorrow morning at 5:30 our time, 4:30 your time. And I don't know if he'll make it to the finals, but it's been super exciting. And I know Mike has followed him. So I mean, Jim is up early following him.
Oh, yeah.
It's been very exciting to have a grandson in the Olympics. And of course, he's rubbing shoulders with all kinds of people and all. It's wonderful. In the running world, he's a star. Outside the running world, nobody ever heard of him. But that's the story.
That's great.
And he's only 21, but he's a good kid. He's friendly. He's good with the other runners. He makes friends. He doesn't spend his money. He's frugal. You couldn't ask for a nicer kid. Not that I'm prejudiced or anything. He's a good kid.
Tom, Jim, thanks for being a part of Mentor Moments. So we really, really appreciate your time and your sharing your love for teaching and with all our listeners.
And Braden, let me just say that you've been smiling through most of this with a nice, just a very friendly, open, encouraging look on your face.
Yeah, that's helped us.
I think you're going to be
Oh my.
you're going to be a great teacher, or whatever you decide to be.
Right.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
Very welcome the presence you have.
Yeah.
Oh.
You guys made it easy for us.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Well, it's been great, like getting to meet you both. Dr. Keener just like thinks the world of both of you. And so it's very nice to put some faces to some names now. So
well, we've enjoyed keeping our connection with Mike all these years.
Yeah.
It's been nice to do that. It doesn't happen all the time.
No, and to see how he's, working with you and other students, it's fantastic.